Hello everyone, welcome to this new video on C declarations. So we are going to cover a few more basic concepts before we actually start writing the C programs. So the first thing that we need to know is the character set. What kind of characters can I use in the C program? So you can use alphabets, capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, so it has to be small a. You can use digits 0 to 9. You can use special characters. In total, there are 28 special characters. I have not listed all of them, but they are pretty much the ones that are available on your keyboard, right? Like comma, dot, semicolon, colon, dollar sign, percentage sign, all those things, hash, at the rate, these things. Apart from this, there are white spaces that you can use and some escape sequences. Now, what are these escape sequences? Now these escape sequences are very helpful and a few of them you will require very frequently. So I'll discuss the important ones here which you will be using. So the first one is backspace. So this will take the pointer one space back, similar to your backspace on your keyboard or delete button. Okay, so once you press backspace, it deletes the character on the left hand side, right? Then this horizontal tab. So if you want to give a tab space in your output, okay, so you don't want just a space but a tab, so you can use there /t within your print statement. We'll see this when we do a few examples at the end of this lecture. Then there is vertical tab. New line is will take the cursor to the or will take the pointer to the next line. So people generally get confused between new line and carriage return. The difference is when you use new line, the pointer moves to the beginning of the next line. In carriage return, the pointer moves to the beginning of the same line. Then there is question mark. You will hardly use it. Alert bell, hardly you're going to use it. Then the important ones are single quote and double quotes. So what happens is when you use printf, if you remember the very first example. So how we use printf, we write printf and then double quotes, let's suppose hello. So the output will be hello. But what if I want the output to include double quotes? Then how will I do it? Then you need to escape the double quotes. So this is where this escape followed by double quotes comes into play. Similarly, escape followed by single quote if you want to print single quote as such in your output. So we'll see some of these with examples at the end of the lecture. Then there is a concept of delimiters. So delimiters are characters that mark the beginning or end of a unit or a region in your text. Okay. So these are the delimiters that are used. Colon is used for labels. I'll give you an example. There is a statement called switch statement. We use switch when there are multiple options that can happen. And for each option, we create a case. So let's suppose when you use a calculator, there are a lot of options that are available. You can press the plus button, minus, multiply, divide, or any of the operators. So for every button that you press for a different choice, a separate operation happens. So how do you do it? So you give the option in case, like there will be a case for plus, there might be a case for minus, and so on. So you end this case with colon. So you end this case with colon. Every case you end with colon. Next is semicolon. Semicolon, we already know that is used to end a statement. Parentheses, so they are used either for expressions. Let's suppose you want to say a plus b into c. So you can use brackets here, parentheses here, or in case of functions also, if you remember int main and then it's followed by parentheses. So every function will followed by parentheses. Then there is square brackets. Square brackets are used when we declare arrays. So this we'll discuss later in the series. Curly braces, scope of statements. So generally you will see this curly braces followed after a function name. Okay, whenever you define the function, you will use these curly braces. Again, remember int main, and then we use the opening curly braces. We wrote a statement and then we close the curly braces. Next delimiter is hash. Hash include. Okay, so hash is used for preprocessor directives. Comma we use when we want to separate multiple variables. So let's suppose you define few variables, for example int x comma y comma z. So x y z are three variables separated with comma. Last delimiter is angle brackets, which again you have seen during the header files. So these delimiters basically help the compiler to identify different units or different tokens inside your program. So coming on to tokens, token is the smallest unit in your source code, okay, and which is meaningful for a compiler. You need not to get much into detail, but this is something which will help the compiler know what it has seen. Or I'll take an example. Let's suppose if I say a comma b comma c, okay, or I say a b c. If I say a b c, you will tell that there are three alphabets, because you know that space is a delimiter here. So space means a new character or a new word has started. Now in a comma b comma c also there is no space, but you still know these are three different things. How? Because in this case the comma is the delimiter. In a CSV file these are three separate characters, but in the same CSV file if you write it like this is one, because there is no comma. So in that case this is one token, but if it is comma then
A, B and C are three different tokens.
So tokens will help the compiler to identify whether the syntax is correct or not. So I'll not get too much into it, but tokens will be the smallest unit upon which the compiler is going to do further processing. So what are the tokens? Keywords. All the keywords will be tokens. We'll see the keywords in the next slide. Then all the variables like in int x comma y. So int here is a keyword. X comma y comma z. These are x, y, z are tokens. These commas are tokens. This semicolon is a token. Okay. So these are separate things. Int is separate, x is separate, y is separate, z is separate. Then constants are token, like 5 is a constant, so that's a token. Operators, any symbol like plus, minus, divide, all these operators are tokens. Special characters at the rate is a token. Strings in double quotes, whatever you write, hello world. So this is also a token, right? Next are keywords. Keywords are reserved words which have some fixed meaning assigned to them. So the meaning has been pre-assigned. So you cannot change them and you cannot use them as variable names. All right. So there are 32 keywords in total. The list is here. So you will automatically come to know once you keep using them. Okay. Next thing is identifiers. So identifiers is nothing but names given to variables, functions, constants, structure, union, array, etc. Right? So how you can give a name in C programming language? The name should consist of alphabet, digit or underscore. The special character allowed is only underscore. And the name will always start with an alphabet or an underscore. It cannot start with a digit. So if you write 1A, this is a wrong identifier, whereas A1 is correct. Keywords cannot be used as identifier names, and C as such does not define any length on the identifier name. Although the compiler can set up a limit, but from the language side, there is no fixed length assigned to the identifiers. Then is the concept of constants. Constants are something that cannot change or whose value cannot change during the execution of the program. So there are two kinds of constants, numeric constants and character constants. Numeric constants are further of two types, integers or real values. So integers are numbers without decimals, so 10 plus 10 minus 15 and so on. Real constants are floating point or decimal point numbers like 2.5, minus 3.66 and so on. So you see that 10 will always remain 10. It will not change. That's why it's a constant. Similarly, there are character constants and string constants. Character constants, single character. It can be an alphabet, it can be a digit, it can be a special symbol. Anything within a single quote, single character is a character constant. So A will always remain A. It won't change. String constants, a combination of alphabets or characters forms a string. So you always write string constants in double quotes. Next is a variable. Very important to understand. Variables are named storage location in memory. So in memory, if you want to store something at any location, you give it a name, and that's called a variable. It holds the data or the information that you want to store. For example, X is a variable which holds the value 5. So you say X is equal to 5. Okay, this is a common expression, mathematical expression. This means what? X is a variable and it has a value 5. This value can change during the course of the program. Okay, so at time you might want to increment this value. So you might say 5 plus 1. So now the value of X is 6. The location is still same. I am referring to the same location, but now the value has changed. Every variable will have a data type which will tell that what kind of a value it is storing. So the type can be an integer. We'll discuss them separately in the next video. It can be a character, it can be a float, and so on. Okay, and variables, they allow you to change their value during the execution of a program, as I have already discussed. Now, what are the rules for defining variables? So there are a few rules that you should follow while giving name to a variable. First thing is, it must begin with a character or an underscore. Okay, similar to what was there in identifiers. Thereafter, it can consist of alphabets, digits, and underscore. The maximum length as per the standard is 31 characters, but it will vary from compiler to compiler. And the last important thing is, you cannot use a keyword as a variable name. In the next video, we will practice some programs based upon the concepts that we have discussed in this particular lecture.